Let's begin. The day Ivy stopped humming in the kitchen, something inside Damien shifted. It was so subtle. Just silence where there used to be soft notes drifting from her lips while she stirred her tea, tied her apron, or waited for the kettle to hiss. That morning, she simply stared into her cup, unmoving. No song, no glance, no warmth. Damien was already dressed for work, standing by the window, tying his tie. But the silence bit into him more than any words ever could. "Ivy," he said softly, careful not to spook the stillness. "You okay?" She turned, her eyes cool, polite. "Of course," she replied with a smile too thin to believe. "Why wouldn't I be?" But he saw it. The vacancy behind her eyes. The disconnect. The way she clutched her phone under the kitchen towel, angling it away like it held secrets. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct. He smiled back, nodded, and kissed her cheek. She didn't lean into it, just stood there, like a statue. That was the day Damien stopped hoping and started watching. Their marriage had never been flashy, but it had been full of quiet, consistent love. Long walks at sunset, Sunday pancakes, laughs that came easy, plans made in bed at midnight, whispered through soft smiles. Ivy used to be the girl who traced her finger along the veins of his arm while he worked late, whispering she was proud of him. But now, she barely looked up when he entered the room. At first, he blamed himself. Maybe he worked too much. Maybe he missed her subtle cries for attention. So, he adjusted. Came home earlier. Brought home lilies, her favorite. Took her out to dinner. Tried to make her laugh. But all he got in return were forced smiles and eyes glued to a screen. Her screen. It was always in her hand. Always flipped down when he walked into the room. And that small act, tiny, dismissible, began gnawing at him. There's something cruel about silence when it's hiding something loud. It was around that time that the dream started. He'd wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, from visions of Ivy laughing in someone else's arms. He'd glance over at her in the dark, curled up, facing the wall, phone by her side, and wonder if it was a dream after all. But reality had sharper edges. One evening, after Ivy said she was visiting her sister for the third time in a week, Damien followed her. No plan, no accusation, just quiet desperation, driving his hands to the steering wheel. He didn't know what he expected. He didn't expect to see her pull into the parking lot of a downtown apartment complex. He didn't expect to see her step out of the car in heels she hadn't worn in months. He didn't expect her to press the buzzer, smile, and be buzzed up. And he definitely didn't expect to sit in his car for 3 hours, in the pouring rain, while the glow of someone else's apartment window reminded him exactly how irrelevant he'd become. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He just watched. And when Ivy finally walked out, her coat undone, her lipstick smudged slightly, her phone already back in hand, Damien quietly turned the ignition and drove home. She came in 2 hours later, cheeks red from the wind, eyes casual. "Hey," she called out, as if nothing had happened. "Did you eat?" He didn't answer, just nodded from the couch. She never noticed the faint tremble in his hand, or the photo tucked inside his jacket pocket. That night, Damien lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a single thought spiraling through his mind. She thinks I don't know. But he did. And what Ivy didn't know, what Ivy would never expect, was that Damien, quiet, forgiving, calm Damien, was already crafting a plan that would leave her breathless. And when it hit, it would hurt. Because betrayal, he realized, isn't just about losing someone. It's about who they become once they think you're too broken to fight back. But Damien wasn't broken. He was sharpening. 2 weeks passed, and Damien never said a word. He still made her coffee every morning. Black, no sugar, just how she liked it. He still kissed her cheek before work, still smiled at her in passing, still folded her laundry with precision. But something had changed. Ivy didn't notice at first. She was too caught up in the high, the thrill of deception. Her phone never left her side, and the password had changed again. She didn't bother hiding it anymore. She just assumed Damien had long given up trying to understand her distance. But he hadn't. He was documenting everything. Every time she left the house without saying where she was going, he wrote it down. He tracked the money, the gas usage, the Uber receipts she didn't think he'd ever check. He made copies of their shared financials, screenshots of late-night texts she hadn't deleted fast enough, An email she didn't realize had synced to the family laptop. Damien had turned into something else. Cold, calculated, strategic. But not cruel. Not yet. At night, he still stared at the ceiling, but it wasn't with sorrow anymore. It was clarity. Meanwhile, Ivy's affair bloomed like rot beneath floorboards. The man's name was Marcus, a former client at her marketing firm. He was charming, divorced, said all the right things. Ivy, who once swore she wasn't the type to cheat, had fallen for him fast. With Marcus, she felt seen, desired, alive. But what she didn't understand, what she refused to acknowledge, was that the emptiness she felt had little to do with Damien. It came from her, from choices she made long before she ever met Marcus, from the deep, hollow space inside her that no amount of lust could fill. Still, she clung to the illusion. Marcus whispered promises in hotel rooms and said things like, "You deserve better," while peeling off her wedding ring. And Ivy believed him. She fed on his compliments like oxygen. She wanted out of her marriage, but not with dignity. No, she wanted to feel victorious, wanted Damien to hurt. So she started to provoke him. She criticized everything. His clothes, his laugh, his job, called him boring, said he didn't challenge her, said he didn't make her feel anything anymore. Damien just smiled. That smile unnerved her. It was the smile of someone who already knew something she didn't. One night, she came home and found him on the balcony, sipping wine in the dark. For the first time in months, she watched him. Really watched. There was a stillness to him, a confidence that made her uneasy. "You okay?" she asked, folding her arms. He didn't look at her. Never better. She blinked. That wasn't the answer she expected. "I made dinner," she offered, feigning softness. "Not hungry," he replied. When he finally turned, the dim light caught the faintest curve of his lips. Not a smile, more like a secret unfolding. "I'm headed to bed," he said calmly. Early meeting. She watched him walk inside. The next morning, Damien was gone before sunrise. What Ivy didn't know was that while she slept, Damien was already meeting with a private attorney, delivering files, evidence, photos, and laying the groundwork for a divorce that would shatter her expectations. He didn't want revenge. Not yet. He wanted justice. Quiet, thorough, undeniable. He also made another call that morning, to someone Ivy never suspected. Her childhood friend, Camila. Camila was the one friend Ivy had that Damien always got along with. She was fiercely loyal, practical, and had once said to Ivy over wine, "If you ever hurt him, I swear, I'll take his side." Now, Damien was calling in that promise. Over the following weeks, Camila became his confidant. They met in cafes and parks, shared stories, cried once together, and something delicate began to grow. Not romance. Not yet. But connection. Something Ivy had tossed away without realizing its worth. Meanwhile, Ivy had made a decision. She was going to leave Damien, but not until she drained him first. She began transferring small amounts from their joint savings into an offshore account Marcus had set up for her. She rationalized it, told herself it was hers too, that Damien didn't deserve all the comfort. She was the one who had suffered in silence, wasn't she? She had no idea he already knew. She had no idea he'd replaced their financial advisor 3 months ago and flagged every transaction. She had no idea that the apartment Marcus had been showing her, the one he promised they'd share, wasn't even in his name. That Marcus was seeing someone else. Because Marcus wasn't stupid. He liked the chase, not the commitment. And Ivy, she was just the latest thrill. She didn't know that yet. But Damien did. And he was just waiting for the exact moment her world would tilt, collapse, and burn. And in that ruin, she'd finally understand what she truly destroyed. Ivy stared at the text on her screen for 5 full minutes. Her thumb hovered above the reply button, unmoving, as the words seared into her brain. "You should probably stop texting me. My girlfriend found out. I'm done. Sorry." No signature. No warmth. Just dismissal. She blinked hard, rereading it again. Her stomach twisted. Girlfriend? Marcus had told her they were meant to be, that they'd find a place together, that she was different, that he'd never felt this way before. And now this. Ivy gripped the edge of the bathroom sink, nausea swelling in her throat. She'd left work early, unable to sit through another team meeting. Her chest felt hollow. Her palms were sweaty. Her entire world, the one she'd carefully built on lies, was unraveling fast. Panic crept in. She opened their chat history. Deleted. All of it. She tried calling him. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. She messaged one of her coworkers who knew Marcus casually. Hey, weird question. Do you know if Marcus is seeing someone? The reply came almost instantly. LOL, yeah. Been with this girl Amanda for months. Thought you knew. She posts them all the time. Ivy's blood ran cold. All the time. She dove into Instagram, searched Amanda's profile. Public. Photos everywhere. Marcus and Amanda at brunch. At a beach house. In Paris. One photo caught her breath. Marcus holding Amanda's hand on a pier. Same jacket. Same bracelet Ivy had given him. The date? 3 days before he kissed Ivy in that hotel room. Her entire body went numb. She staggered out of the bathroom and into the bedroom, clutching her phone like it might answer all the questions clawing at her. But there was only one truth now, and it was blaring in neon across her soul. She'd been used, played, tossed aside. And Damien had said nothing, shown no suspicion, made no scene, just continued on like the perfect husband. A new thought bloomed, and it terrified her more than Marcus's betrayal. What if Damien knew? Her hand shook as she scrolled to her shared bank app. She froze. Several transactions were gone. Not missing, moved. She tapped deeper. New account names. Legal transfers. Lockouts. She logged in her email. Access denied. She ran into Damien's home office. Locked. He never locked it. Now, her pulse was racing. Sweat slicked her neck. She called his phone. Straight to voicemail. Damien. She hissed into the receiver. I need to talk to you. Call me back. Now. She paced for an hour. Then 2. Finally, just after 7, the door clicked open. Damien stepped in, calm as glass, dressed in a sleek black coat, phone in one hand, briefcase in the other. Ivy rushed toward him, face pale. We need to talk. He raised an eyebrow. About Marcus? Her breath caught. He knew. You knew. He stepped around her, placed his briefcase on the table, and removed a thin file. I knew the night you started lying about those late meetings. I knew when you changed your passwords. I knew the day you came home smelling like cologne you didn't wear. Ivy sank onto the couch. Damien didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He was calm, collected, terrifying. You think I just sat here waiting to be your backup plan? He asked, voice low. I've been preparing. Quietly. Strategically. Because I knew you'd choose chaos. I made a mistake, Ivy whispered, tears pooling now. He lied to me. He said. Damien's laugh was bitter. So did you. For months. She leaned forward, voice cracking. But we can fix this. He shook his head slowly. There's no we anymore. And then, he dropped the bomb. There's something else. Ivy blinked. What? I've filed. The papers are done. My lawyer's waiting for your signature. And I've already moved the assets. The house, the stocks, everything you try to quietly siphon into your freedom fund. Traced. Reclaimed. Legally. Her lips parted, air struggling to fill her lungs. He leaned closer, and his words were the knife she never saw coming. Oh, and I'm not alone anymore. I've been seeing someone. She's kind, steady, honest. Everything you stopped being. No. Ivy whispered, hands clutching her stomach. Damien, you can't. I can, he said softly. And I already did. Then the front door opened again, and in walked Camila, hair pulled back, confidence glowing. She smiled gently at Ivy. Not mockingly, not cruelly. Just sad. I told you. Camila said quietly, setting a small folder on the table. If you ever hurt him, I'd take his side. Ivy's scream was silent. Just a sharp intake of breath, her world crumbling like wet ash around her. She watched Damien place a hand on Camila's back, guiding her gently toward the hallway. He turned back once. You wanted a war, Ivy. You just didn't realize how prepared I'd be. And then he was gone, leaving her alone in the ruins she created, without Marcus, without Damien, without anything. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because Ivy wasn't done burning. She just needed to find the right match. The first morning Ivy woke up alone, the silence was unbearable. It clawed at the walls, slithered under the sheets, wrapped around her throat like guilt. The bed felt bigger now. Emptier. Her phone was dead. The flowers Damien used to bring every Sunday were gone. Even a mug she loved, the yellow one with the chipped rim, had vanished from the kitchen shelf. He took it, not out of spite, but to remind her he had loved her once. That was the real punishment. Every step through the house whispered his absence. She opened drawers and found nothing. Checked her email. Access revoked. She searched for bank accounts. Frozen. Her lawyer wouldn't answer her texts anymore. She tried calling Marcus. Still voicemail. She scrolled through her photos, zoomed in on the ones where she looked happiest. She barely recognized the girl in them. When Camila showed up at Damien's side in court, Ivy's world cracked wide open. He didn't gloat. He didn't look at her. Not once. Camila handed over paperwork like a silent executioner, and Ivy could barely hold the pen. The courtroom was quiet, clean, professional, cold. But that night, when she returned to her empty apartment, the one she used to joke was too small for ambition. Something broke inside her. She couldn't cry, couldn't scream. She just stood in the hallway, staring at the wall, until sunrise bled across the blinds. That's when the obsession began. At first, it was subtle. She'd refresh Damien's social media, hoping for a crack in the surface. But there were no posts, no photos, no updates, just silence. And that silence, calculated, intentional, drove her insane. She messaged old friends. No one responded. She tried to find mutuals, but it seemed like Damien had disappeared from every thread of her life. Except one, Camila. She hadn't blocked Ivy. Not yet. Ivy lurked, watched, studied every caption, every tag, every flicker of Damien's reflection in a wine glass or the corner of a restaurant booth. She watched his smile slowly return, and that's when her anger bloomed into something darker. She didn't want him back. She wanted him undone. She created fake profiles, planted false stories, tried to make it look like Damien had cheated first, posted anonymously on gossip forums, hinting that Camila had seduced him before the divorce. She even showed up at Camila's job one afternoon, uninvited, sobbing, accusing, grasping at sympathy. Camila didn't flinch. "Ivy," she said calmly, "you broke him. All I did was help him remember how to breathe." Then she turned and walked away. That night, Ivy drank. Heavily. For the first time in years. She stared at the wall, tears sliding down her face, and whispered, "I didn't mean to lose him." But it was too late. Because Damien was thriving. He launched his new company, something he dreamed about but never dared pursue. Now free from Ivy's constant dismissals and criticisms, he was climbing. Fast. His confidence returned like fire. His team respected him. Camila stood beside him, not as a shadow of Ivy, but as a flame of her own. And that's when Ivy made her final move. She showed up at his apartment. Hair curled, makeup perfect, voice soft. She carried a photo album, their album, the one he thought he'd thrown away. Damien opened the door, saw her standing there, and said nothing. "I just want to talk," she whispered. He stared for a long moment, then stepped aside, only for one reason: closure. She placed the album on the table, opened it to a page where they'd vacationed in Spain. "Do you remember this?" she asked, eyes glassy. "I do," he replied. "It was the last time you looked at me like I mattered." She flinched. "I lost myself," she whispered. "I was lonely. I didn't know how to ask for help. Marcus made me feel like someone wanted me again." "You could have told me," he said. "I didn't think you'd listen." "I would have," he said softly, "but you never gave me the chance." A long pause settled between them. Then Ivy's voice dropped lower. "I miss you." Damien studied her, quiet, still. "I miss the man I used to know," she continued, reaching for his hand. "I know you've moved on, but I needed to say it." He let her hold his hand for just a second longer. Then he pulled away. "I'm not the man you used to know," he said. "You taught me how to be this version of myself. So thank you." And with that, he stood. "Ivy," he said with finality, "this is the last time we'll speak." She nodded, tears welling. But the storm inside her wasn't gone. Not yet. Because Ivy wasn't built to lose. And her final play, the one that would change everything, was still unfolding in the shadows. And Damien never saw it coming. 3 weeks passed. Ivy disappeared from the public eye. No more fake profiles. No more surprise visits. No more drunken voicemails begging Damien to meet for one last talk. To him, it seemed like maybe, finally, she had let go. She hadn't. She was just waiting for the right time to strike. And when she did, it was devastating. One Tuesday morning, As Damien walked into his office, coffee in hand, Camila on the phone, he was met by two uniformed officers waiting near reception. They handed him a sealed envelope, informing him he was under investigation for embezzlement. At first, Damien laughed. A gut reaction. It had to be a mistake. Until he opened the envelope. Inside were falsified spreadsheets, fake signatures, altered transactions, crafted to make it look like Damien had siphoned money from his own company's early investors. And worse, anonymous emails had already gone out to every board member. His name was everywhere. His company's PR team was scrambling. News started circulating. The anonymous tip had come from a burner account. But Damien knew. He knew. Ivy. She had gone nuclear. He spent the next 48 hours buried in lawyers, accountants, and security experts. For the first time since their divorce, the panic returned. Not because of what she might take, but because of what she could destroy. Camila stood by his side, unwavering, furious, protective. "She's trying to erase your future," she said, voice trembling with rage. "We're not letting her." But Damien wasn't angry. He was done with anger. He was surgical now. He gathered everything. All the files he'd never released during the divorce. The voice recordings. The backup messages. The photos. The account routing logs showing Ivy moving money under a false LLC name. The metadata proving her financial trail. And then, he made one call. To Ivy's new employer. Yes, despite everything, Ivy had recently landed a high-profile PR job with a major firm, claiming she was rebuilding her life. What she didn't know was that the company's lead investor was Damien's mentor, and Damien had receipts. The next morning, Ivy walked into work wearing a crisp beige suit and a forced smile. Her heart was still bruised, but she told herself she was rising again, surviving. She never made it to her desk. Her boss stopped her in the hallway, handed her a brown envelope, and said 4 words. "You need to leave." Inside the envelope was everything. Proof of her manipulations, the false embezzlement report, the threats to Damien. All traced, all verified, all damning. She was fired on the spot. As she stepped out of the office into the pouring rain, Ivy realized something chilling. She had nothing. No job, no Marcus, no marriage, no home, no reputation, no more control. And Damien? He didn't just survive. He thrived. With the crisis squashed, his company only grew stronger. His investors doubled down. The public sympathized, seeing him as a man who'd been falsely accused, wrongfully attacked, yet handled it all with quiet grace. His story went viral. And as for Camila, she stood with him at the first investor gala, hand in hand, her dress shimmering like the night sky. Cameras flashed. The world watched. And Ivy? She watched too. From a cracked iPhone in a second-hand apartment on the edge of the city, streaming a video she couldn't turn away from. There was Damien, standing at the podium, speaking into the mic with calm clarity. "I once gave my heart to someone who didn't know how to hold it. And when they broke it, I thought I'd never trust again. But betrayal doesn't have to end you. Sometimes it forges you. Stronger, smarter, and yes, colder, but only to those who set the fire in the first place." The crowd erupted. Ivy turned off the phone, but his voice still echoed. She dropped the device, curled up on the floor, and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't karma. This was consequence. Damien didn't destroy her with rage. He buried her with restraint. Because the most devastating revenge is becoming unforgettable to someone who treated you like you were disposable. He didn't just walk away. He became everything she thought he could never be, without her. And that silence, that permanent absence, it rang louder than any scream she could ever make.